Welcome back to Andersen Acres. It's a bit of a blustery day out here. It happens in early December. So, we're actually just going to stay inside and instead we're going to talk about another chicken breed. Today we're going to talk about the Araucana, or pronounced Araucana depending on where you are. The pronunciation difference, I can't even talk today, but the pronunciation difference is kind of regional. Both pronunciations are acceptable. So if someone's saying it's slightly different, that's still the same breed. If you're in the United States, you might hear them referred to as Ameraucanas or Ameraucanas. I'm going to put the spelling of both Araucana and Ameraucana up on the screen just because I want you to take a look at the spelling. You'll notice there isn't an I. There shouldn't be an I in any of the spellings. If there is an I, you're going to want to pay real close attention and ask the breeder some questions because when it's spelled with an I, there's a real good chance that it might be a mixed breed. All right? So ask questions because it is not supposed to be spelled with an I. And some people will change the spelling and add the I in because then they're not actually selling pure breeds and you can't come back at them later and say, hey, this was supposed to be a purebred Araucana, because it's not. If it's spelled with an I, it's probably not pure. So get ready to ask questions. Now, these birds are actually really interesting because they lay blue eggs. They come from South America originally, and records of blue laying chickens in South America do date back to the early 1500s. So these guys are not new. They've been around a long time. They were first brought into Europe around 1914, but they weren't exhibited until 1921 when they did show up at the World Poultry Congress in the Netherlands. So these guys are generally supposed to be rumpless. And when I say rumpless, I don't mean they don't have a butt. Of course they have a butt. I just mean they don't have the traditional chicken tail feathers going up. Instead, they have feathers on their butts. They just don't go up to form a tail. This is actually designed to protect them in the wild. It's a natural adaptation that happened over several centuries. If you don't have a bunch of rump feathers to grab, it's easier for you to get away from a predator. So this actually is a normal, natural adaptation. This isn't something breeders created. It's something that happened naturally in the wild, and we just liked it and then continued to breed for it later. The original birds that were shown in the Netherlands had beards, but they also only had single combs. Some areas allow beards these days, some don't. None of the Araucanas exhibited in the world today should have a single comb. They should all have a pea comb. The real problem was the original chickens shown in Europe in 1921 actually turned out to be crossbreeds. So this led to a lot of confusion regarding standards, and it meant that standards around the world are a little bit different. So you're going to want to check the standards in your area before you invest in Araucanas or rumpless Araucanas. You definitely need to check your standards because depending on where you are in the world, the birds might have to have beards, they might not be allowed to have beards at all, or they might be allowed to have beards, but there will be a preference either way. So check your local standards before you invest in these birds because they can be a little bit pricey. So they are, like I mentioned, rumpless birds. They should have a pea comb, and they should have tufts of feathers growing near their ears. Yes, I know chickens don't technically have ears, but they have ears. So the tufts of feathers growing near their ears is pretty much a breed standard. They should have that. And they lay beautiful blue eggs. Sometimes the eggs can be slightly blue-green, but they definitely should be on that blue side of green. They're not actually green eggs. So they do lay an average amount of eggs. They're not super layers. They're not leghorns. Okay, that's just something, if you have Araucanas, you have to deal with it because they don't lay a ton. They lay 170 to 200 eggs a year, which is not horrible. They do come in both bantam and standard. The bantam is smaller, yes, but it also lays fewer eggs. They're closer to the 170 egg mark a year, whereas the standard is close. The standard sized chickens are closer to 200 eggs a year. They do come in a variety of interesting colors. Most areas allow black, black red, blue, blue red, creole, cuckoo, golden duckwing, silver duckwing, lavender, pile, spangled, and white. White is the standard color. So when people talk Araucanas, they're usually meaning white. If you're looking to show your chickens, maybe look at what colors are available in your area and try to get a different color. It's easier to win in a show if you don't have the exact same color as everyone else. So maybe look and see what's available and see if you can't get a slightly different color, because these guys are awesome, but it's hard to win if you have the same color as everyone else. They are really fun birds. Most people love them because of the variety in eggs. Not everyone has blue layers. So having a couple of these hens, even if you don't want to show them, having a few of the hens in your flock means you reliably have blue eggs, which is really cool. So that is about it for us here at Andersen Acres. I hope you enjoy the Araucana and maybe you'll consider adding them to your flock. They're a pretty good breed. They're easy for beginners. They're not flighty and they're very easy to handle. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow.